So a quick update on what's going on with the power situation in Texas. So first off, if you're not from the state, you probably don't really know what's going on. If you live in a northern state, you may think, well, we get snow all the time. But really, you have to think of where Texas is located. We're located very far south. Think of a place like Saudi Arabia getting a snowstorm. So just an example, our whole infrastructure, it starts with infrastructure and then even the ecology. It's not used to this type of temperature. This is like a once in a generation, once every 2 generations type of storm. Texas is known for 115 degree summers. It's not known for its blizzards. So everything is built and optimized for that type of environment. This is not something that ever happens. Again, once in a generation. So when you think of infrastructure, you think the roads. The asphalt we use is for high heat environments. It's not designed to be used or salted for cold weather. We don't have all of the infrastructure and equipment for clearing roads because it's not something that you heavily invest in, because it's not something that happens on a regular basis here. It's not something that happens 4 or 5 months out of the year like what happened in a northern state. So naturally, in northern states, they're optimized for what the weather is on a year in, year out basis, which is snow. Here, we don't get snow. We never get this much snow. I've never seen this much snow in my life. So plumbing, so that's roads. Plumbing, our plumbing is not designed for cold temperature. Houses, all the way from houses to service lines that feed into power stations. Those lines are not winterized. We don't have shutoff valves for outdoor spigots, for example. We normally have a handful of days below freezing, and we put our faucets on drip. But pipes are not well insulated. We don't have shutoff valves. Again, it's because this is not something we experience on a year in, year out basis. This is something that, again, is once every 100 years, once in a generation or two. The trees, the wildlife, they're not adapted to live in this type of cold. The trees, for example, pecans and elm trees, they can't hold more than a day or so worth of ice. We had an ice storm within the first couple of hours. The trees, they can't hold ice. And so we had branches and trees falling. That hit power lines, broke power lines. So that contributed as well. So you have systems are optimized for the type of weather that they experience within a 10, 20, 30 year time frame. They're not optimized for what you would experience once every 100 years. And so naturally, systems in states where it snows every year are optimized to deal with that. Here in Texas, we're optimized for our environment, which is a environment where we have 110, 115 degree summers. We don't have weeks of freezing temperatures. Again, it's not something that happens. But it did happen. And so what's happened is we've had natural gas lines freeze. We've had water lines freeze. As a result, natural gas plants have frozen. Nuclear plants that require water cooling have had to close because the water supply has frozen up. We had wind generation that was didn't have winterizing capabilities, didn't have antifreeze to unfreeze the fans. So those have frozen up. The other issue is our renewable sources of energy. All sources of energy have been affected, but our renewable sources of energy, wind and solar, have been the most impacted. They make about 30%, between 20 and 30% of our energy production, and those are producing at very, very minimal, just a fraction of what they would normally produce. So those sources of energy are somewhat less reliable, especially given the conditions. So that's just a little bit of some context on what we're dealing with. Again, Texas doesn't. It's easy to say, oh well, it snows like this on a regular basis in other states, but again, we're talking about a climate that is a very arid, temperate climate. We're talking about Texas. If you've ever been here, you've probably sweat to death. So again, the whole infrastructure, everything from the roads, plumbing in houses, all the way to plumbing in feeding electric power plants. Everything is built for a temperate climate. So again, if you had a blizzard in Hawaii or a blizzard in a tropical environment or in a desert environment, you obviously wouldn't expect to deal with something like this. That being said, this is Texas. We're Texans. We have to do better. And I know, you think about before an event like this, people didn't view this as something that was likely to happen. And so most people aren't willing to invest money in something they think isn't going to happen. Obviously, it's happened. So we'll see whether it's a wake-up call and people want to do something about it or not. It remains to be seen if this is something that becomes more of a regular occurrence or if this is going to be, again, like a once in a 50, once in a 100-year type of event. So I think probably the main factors here are once we get above freezing, those natural gas lines will thaw out, the water lines will thaw out, and we'll be back up and running. But again, this isn't just, we're not just talking about certain power plants not being winterized. We're talking about a whole state, an environment that is used to dealing with hot temperatures, not used to dealing with cold temperatures, as far as what's at the edge of our normal use case, right? What we normally deal with are really hot temperatures in a really hot summer. That's peak usage. We don't deal with long stretches of cold weather. So our system is optimized for that. And so, it remains to be seen what'll happen, but that's a quick explanation of what's going on. So hopefully that's helpful. Feel free to comment, reach out, and please subscribe. Talk to you later.